What's good, people? Welcome to the Big Dudes in the Trenches podcast. All kinds of technical
Oh my
difficulties
God,
get
there
started
it is.
here. Oh man, what a great podcast.
What a fucking night.
Oh man. So this is our regularly scheduled Thursday night show. Unfortunately, as regularly scheduled goes, we regularly scheduled this at the same time as 3 different college football games are happening. So we may or may not be talking about all 3 of these as we go through the night. And one of them we had to make picks for, and we put them up on X. You can follow us on X, BDT Football on there. Recommend that you do that for events like this, where Western Kentucky is currently playing, and we had to pick that game because it's a rivalry game. They're playing Middle Tennessee State in the 100 Miles of Hate game tonight, which is most years this is Western Kentucky's homecoming, but it's not this year because
So early
they
in the
want to do
year.
it right. They want to do it later in the year, and Conference USA is a lot different now than it was last year with conference realignment. So their homecoming this year is against New Mexico State, which is wild. That is not a traditional matchup in the
No,
slightest.
no. And as you saw, if you saw on X, which that had its own technical difficulties for whatever reason, the scheduled tweet, post, whatever, just decided, nah, we're not going to go up. It just, I thought, I'm not going to lie to you, I did this at like 4 or 5 in the morning. I was like, well, maybe I did the big dumb and put it on the 29th, because I was like, oh, it's got to be the next day. No, it just said failed. And then, like, I couldn't edit shit. The only thing I could do was delete it. And I was like, what's going on? But yeah, I checked. I was like, oh, I'm gonna start promoting this and pumping this tweet up. No, I went and looked and I was like, where is it? Like, I know I said it right.
What a great podcast.
It's been a day for sure.
Yeah. So as you can tell, it's just me and Bug right now as well. Tug is out somewhere doing something with some people. That's all you get.
And that's what happens when you don't have a car when you go places.
Yep. So he may or may not be joining us at some point, and if he does, that'll be weird, and if he doesn't, that'll be weird too. So what a day. All right.
Wow, what a great podcast. We're off to a fiery start here. Let's be real.
Yeah, this is going very well at the moment.
I got into the this is how it's gone, right? I got into the thing because we, son had football practice, daughter had cheerleading. It's muggy and buggy here in Missouri right now, as is the case in late September. It's September.
Yeah, you're off by a couple months there. That's all right. Woo! I would take it being late July, though. I missed out on some great music festivals in August that I only learned about today. Anyway.
Yeah. So, we got home, got the kids bathed, and then food came out of the oven. We're good to go. And I sit down, I'm scarfing my food down. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, babe, look at the time. She's like, oh. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
It's been a rush to the finish. But we're here. We already picked Western Kentucky versus Middle Tennessee State. We all went with the Hilltoppers because we like chicken nuggets more than we like Blue Raiders, whatever the hell that is.
And that's looking good so far. It is 17-3, and it's almost halftime. So
there you go.
We're doing well.
So we, there's potential we still get skunked on this, but there's no bonus points on the line for us in this game. So it's all good. I've had this slide up here for a little bit. If you're interested in knowing the rules, go listen to a previous episode to figure out how we determine points for our games. But just know we're about to go through every ranked matchup at the Division I level. And then, of course, every rivalry, as we've said numerous times already. So what do you say we get straight into some games here?
I before we jump into that, I would also say if you want to pause on the rules, you can watch this live on Twitch. You can actually pause on that too and catch up. Or, like Bug said, he set it up for a minute here. Or check us out on YouTube where we post all of our episodes. If you're listening to the audio version, you're missing out on some good graphics or I don't know if I'd go that far, on some graphics that we put up, and it is worth it. So thank you for listening to the audio version, but the video version is better, and it's even better if you catch us live because you can talk to us Mondays and Thursdays on Twitch. Big dudes in the trenches. If Tug gets on, hopefully he at least gets on for the links at the end. That's what he's known for at this point.
How great would it be if we get all the way to the end, he shows up, and we're like, hey, just in time to do the links.
He would be so mad, and it would be glorious. So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide here, where we have our current standings in the pick'em. We pick so many games every week that this number is blowing up very quickly. But currently, Tug is in the lead with a whopping 69 points.
Nice.
Very nice.
Also,
and Bug is in third with 66. Right? Is that what that says, or is that 65?
65.
I can't read today.
You have 66.
Yeah, well, 68 with the bonus points. So that's how close this is right now. Pretty darn close.
Yeah, and speaking of 69, shout out to Mr. Potato for following us earlier in the week. You are our 69th follower if you're here with us tonight.
Hey,
thank you for showing us love, man.
that is beautiful. Oh my gosh, somehow Western Kentucky just scored again.
With 18 seconds left in the second quarter.
When I looked up and said we were looking good 17-3, they had just punted it, I thought, to Middle Tennessee State
Must
with
have been
like a minute left.
Must have been a pick six.
No, it was a touchdown pass from Austin Reed, so I don't know what the hell happened. But okay.
The only thing MTSU is catching is herpes. That's how it goes. Them's the rules.
Well, don't call them the Blue Raiders for nothing. I'm diving in them waffles. All right.
God.
All right. Ranked versus ranked matchups is not a ranked versus ranked matchup here. Western Kentucky versus Middle Tennessee State. But we do have several to discuss. Ranked versus ranked. Go ahead and start us off here on Friday night. Tomorrow night, as we're live,
or yesterday, or today, if you're listening to the audio version,
or yesterday if you're listening to this Saturday morning for some reason, or a while ago if you're listening to this in the future. All sorts of options. But we're talking about number 10 Utah at number 19 Oregon State. Oregon State, of course, coming off a loss to Washington State last week, and Utah looking like they're going to get their starting quarterback back in the lineup for the first time this season. Cam Rising has been a full participant in practice for 2 weeks now, and the line suddenly jumped a suspicious couple of points in the middle of the week for seemingly no reason other than I would say Cam Rising is back.
I would take that as a good indication that Cam Rising is back. And you add into this that Utah's been dominating with their 2s and 3s and 4s all season anyway. Oregon State coming off of a very emotional loss to Wazoo. I don't think there's any surprise that we're all going with the Utes here.
I think there is some level of surprise just because it is in Corvallis. Like, that is quickly becoming a rather tough place to play over the past couple seasons with Jonathan Smith at the helm. So this is more of a credit to how tough we think Utah is than any shot at Oregon State. Like, this is still a good Beavers team in my eyes.
That's fair. I think that's fair. It's just I don't see it there. I don't see the home field advantage taking them that far, especially if Cam Rising's back.
Well, I obviously agree because I also picked Utah. So next up, number 12, North Dakota at number 1, South Dakota State. This is not North Dakota State. South Dakota State is North Dakota themselves, the Hawks against the Jackrabbits. We know who would win in real life. They win every day. The Hawks do. But also, interestingly enough, the last game that South Dakota State lost with Mark Gronowski as their starting quarterback was against North Dakota. This game is in South Dakota, though, and I'm willing to put my money on the Jackrabbits defending national champions and have been clearing away the number one team in the country so far this season.
You're the champions until you lose. You're the champions until you lose, and that's where I'm going to stand firm on this. North Dakota could absolutely surprise us. Tug taking the home away from home pick here. He was never going to take North Dakota, and I don't blame him.
I was pretty tempted when I found out that stat that North Dakota was the only team to beat them with Mark Gronowski at quarterback for them. But yeah, I had to go with Jackrabbits here. They just, there's a bit of a gap here in terms of overall team talent. Looking at this matchup. Next up, talk about gaps in talent level. Didn't help Texas last time they played, but Kansas at Texas is a ranked versus ranked matchup for the first time in the history of this matchup. Both teams are inside the top 25.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's in Austin this year, and Texas has the 4 and 5 stars to win on paper, but the Jayhawks are a complete team. So it might be closer than some people think.
I would consider taking the massive upset if this game was being played in Lawrence. But Texas has been absolutely rolling. They cleaned up a loss that they took last year to Alabama, which they should have won, by the way. And it really did feel like their season kind of took a turn after that. This year, it seems like that has really started them and completely changed their trajectory from pretty good to just, straight up. Sky's the limit for Texas. I want to get a couple weeks into the conference season. I want to get a couple weeks into Big 12 conference play, but I'm feeling really good about Texas this year, which every Longhorns fan feels good about them every year, right? But I think this year is legitimately going to be different.
They say Texas is back after week 2 every season, so
right. That's why I'm gonna wait a little bit.
I do believe that the meme potential happened already when they played Rice. That was probably a sneaky, difficult matchup, and Texas could have overlooked them and didn't. So at this point, I don't see a reality where they overlook Kansas, which is a wild statement if you're looking at this from a couple of years ago.
Right.
But Kansas is on people's radar at this point. Texas is going to come in motivated to show they're a legitimate top 5 team in the country, which so far it's hard to argue.
College football's better when Texas is better.
That's debatable. I love shitting on them.
I know you do. I know you're in a weird position for
it. Oh, man. But we're all picking Texas, which is 3 for 3. We all picked the same team. Dangerous. But maybe that doesn't hold up on the next slide because we have 3 more ranked versus ranked matchups.
I already spoiled it, so we'll go straight back to it.
Starting us off here with number 4, Idaho, at number 19, Eastern Washington, who has been the surprise team of the Big Sky so far. Eastern Washington has looked very good early in this season. Only a close loss to North Dakota State and a 3-point overtime loss to Fresno State, who is in the FBS top 25 now, as the only blemishes on their record. And Idaho looking every bit the part of what some people predicted to be a dark horse national championship contender out of the Big Sky this season. The Vandals playing extremely well. I'm going with the Vandals here purely because I didn't expect this out of Eastern Washington. And at some point, I feel like that's going to fall through.
That's fair. They do have to come back down to earth, right? Like it's bound to happen. But at the same time, I would say that turf that makes your eyes bleed because it looks like it's bleeding is probably as good of a home field advantage as a beer cannon out in the field. So I'm just saying, if this game was in Idaho, I'm taking Idaho for sure. But I am going to give Eastern Washington a bit of an edge here at home. And like you said, they've been playing amazing football this year. Idaho, I'm not sure that they're ready or fully prepared for what they're about to walk into.
You say that, but they beat an FBS team 33-6 this year. They played it very close with Cal through 3 quarters. And they just beat a former top 10 Sacramento State team last week that two of the three of us picked Sacramento State over Idaho. So it's very possible that this is one of the most battle-tested FCS teams currently this point in the season. I'm willing to bet on the Vandals here.
That's
and
fair.
so is Tug, for the record. We haven't been shouting out his pick every time, but it's been the same as ours. First slide there, so make sure that we do that going forward. Next up is a rivalry matchup, the Magnolia Bowl, number 13 LSU at number 20 Ole Miss. And since they're both ranked, they show up here instead of in that rivalry section. You and I are both going with LSU here. What's your take on this?
I think Tug is kind of hanging on to Brian Kelly can't win in a big game. And this is going to be a very big stage in Oxford. However, he got it done last week, and this team has looked like it's been improving. I think that loss to open the season to FSU was kind of the wake-up call, like, hey, you're kind of fighting for your job at this point. You can't keep doing this. And it seems to me that LSU has turned it around. And number two, I'm never picking Ole Miss. And number three, Ole Miss is the king of the choke job. So I've got plenty of reason not to take the Rebels or Black Bears, whatever they are.
Black Bears?
Yeah, that's their mascot.
I mean, sometimes.
Sometimes it's a shark. Who knows?
Sometimes it's an old dude in a suit.
A rebel. Old Reb. Colonel Reb.
Yep. I don't think there's any scenario where the loss to FSU was a fighting for your job moment for Brian Kelly. I mean, he beat Alabama last year.
In the sense that it's not as bad of a loss as some people make it out to be. I would say more in the sense that it's just a pattern. He can't win the game that he needs to win. He can't win on the big stage, and that's going back to Notre Dame.
The only instance we really have of that at LSU last year was against Florida State, and then this year against Florida State. Like the other losses that he has, nobody really expected him to go out and beat Georgia, so It's fine. I don't really see that storyline as much as you and Tug are both trying to push it. I don't feel it. I'm going with LSU here. Simply because of that. I don't buy into that storyline, and I do think LSU can rise to the occasion, even with Brian Kelly. It's still not his recruited
in spite
team
of Brian
yet,
Kelly.
so yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going to get worse here in a couple of years. Don't worry.
Oh man. Next up, Notre Dame at Duke. First time that college game day will be at Duke ever
For football.
For football, that is very true. Also, the first time Notre Dame and Duke have met as ranked opponents, both inside the top 25. That's probably true of everybody that Duke faces as they are ranked this year. I mean, come on.
I would say so.
When's the last time Duke was a football school? The answer is it hasn't happened before. So very exciting for the Blue Devils. I am going against the grain here. I'm trying to side with Duke. I know I'm a little bit nuts. I want you to take this first, and I'll try to explain myself here in a second. But you have the more traditional stance on this. I will grant you taking Notre Dame here.
Yeah, Tug and I are taking Notre Dame, and as long as they show up with 11 men on defense, I think they'll be in good shape. They should look at their ranking and just be like, "Oh, that's how many are on the field."
Well, the if Duke's allowed to play with 17,
the AP's doing them all kinds of favors. They're like, you know what? We're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. You're number 11.
Well, it's happened to two different opponents now, Ohio State and against Tennessee State. So Notre Dame just can't get out of their own way. No, I am taking
or
Duke
in the
here.
Offense's way.
Yeah. There is let me start with this. I am a documented and known Notre Dame hater. So feel free to take this with a grain of salt if you want to. But I am trying to take this objectively, and I'm picking Duke. And here's why. I see a very disconcerting pattern with Marcus Freeman so far. I know it's only been a little over a year, but we have seen Notre Dame get very up for a game emotionally and crash very hard. It's a remember the Titans quote, but attitude reflect leadership, Captain. So at some point, I got to think some of that falls on Marcus Freeman. And I've seen that in him out of his press conferences and things where he comes across as very strong emotionally. He is very emotionally invested in things. And especially after a big time loss, they just can't get out of their own way. We've seen it a couple of times already. It is very, very possible it happens again after the heartbreaking way that they lost to Ohio State in South Bend last week on a last second play where they messed up and everybody's saying that they should have won if they had only done things the way that they were supposed to and had done all game up to that point.
Yeah, 2
So
plays in a row.
if they come out with that emotional letdown, that makes this game close. What sets it over the top for me is not the fact that Duke's at home. I don't know that they really have a big home field advantage. It is still Duke we're talking about here. Duke has a history of beating Sam Hartman.
That's true.
Last year, Sam Hartman threw for almost 370 yards and 3 touchdowns and still lost to Duke when he was at Wake Forest.
Yeah, that was at Wake Forest, though. All right.
I do understand that was Wake Forest and not Notre Dame. There is a talent differential at most positions, but Duke's not going to be afraid of Sam Hartman in the way some teams could be because he's a 6-year starter who has a ton of experience and a ton of really good football under his belt. Duke's not going to shy away from it. So
Look,
I see a couple of factors here that want me to take the upset, and I do hate Notre Dame, so I'm picking Duke. That's where I ended up.
I am a massive Sam Hartman fan, and I will counter what you're saying about Marcus Freeman to the leadership of Sam Hartman in that locker room as well.
Sure.
So I'm going to give again Notre Dame that edge because of Sam Hartman. I think he's the X factor that kind of changes a lot of things around this Notre Dame team this year. And I can't wait to see him in a Hallmark movie.
He looks perfect for that. Oh,
He
man.
really does.
Next up, all of our rivalry matchups. We have a lot of them this week. Very big rivalry week. Starting us off, a game that we've already talked about. It is halftime now, 23-3, Western Kentucky. That does not mean anything. Middle Tennessee State can absolutely come back and skunk us on this.
Yeah.
It very well could happen. But the first one on Saturday is the Southwest Classic, Arkansas at Texas A&M, noon Eastern, SEC Network.
It's a shame this one's going to be on the SEC Network because this has been grown into a fantastic game and a fantastic rivalry.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time in a while it hasn't just been at Jerry World down in Dallas too, huh?
That it probably actually is. I probably messed up here because that makes too much sense. And I didn't verify that. So Texas A&M is considered the home team, but it probably is an AT&T.
I'm going with Arkansas because I'm not forsaking the Razorbacks. They've let me down twice, but I think they're going to pull through on this one. I do understand you and Tug going with Texas A&M because if I was picking this objectively, it would have been a much harder decision. I do like how Texas A&M has slowly started to turn things around, especially after the thumping they just gave Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas again, they're falling back into the old Razorback ways of we're going to get you right on the doorstep. Somebody do something to get us over the edge because I don't know what we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, and because of all that, I'm going with Texas A&M.
Yeah,
I just want to see. Only thing I'm rooting for in this game is for Bobby Petrino to pull the ultimate joke and show up in a neck brace It's not going to happen, but it would be hilarious. Oh, man. All right, next up. Eastern Michigan at Central Michigan at 1:30 on ESPN Plus. Doesn't even make it to network television. Maction is back, baby. We got some great Maction coming your way with the Eagles and the Chippewas. This is part of a three-way rivalry, of course, with their other directional brethren, Western Michigan up there. So we'll be seeing a couple more of these over the course of this season. Tug and I are going with the Chippewas. What are you thinking with Emu over here?
I think rivalries are unpredictable,
Very
and
true.
I didn't want to just default to the home team in every single one of these. Especially when there's a gap on what I know about them. I know traditionally Eastern Michigan has been the worst of the three, but in the last couple of years, it seems like they've slowly taken that mantle of, if not second best, taking it all the way to the best. Whereas Western Michigan has fallen off in the past couple of years as well. So we're going to see what they can do against the Chippewas. I'm going with Eastern Michigan, though.
I understand that from a historical standpoint, and recently Eastern Michigan has not looked that bad. But man, if they look bad for the first part of this season,
yeah,
that's the only reason I'm going with Central Michigan. Not that they've looked great, but man, Eastern Michigan's looked bad to start the season. But it is a rivalry game, and it'll probably go to 8 overtimes because that's what Maction does.
God, please. We do know one team that's looked shitty to start the season will look shitty all year, and it's not going to change playing the Brown Bears.
Yeah, Colgate at Cornell this weekend. A very long-standing rivalry. Colgate has been shitting the bed for a long time, and we are predicting that will continue. Cornell, not the greatest of the Ivy League teams, but probably ought to be good enough to win this one.
Probably.
Hopefully, at this point, we all picked Cornell. That'd be pretty rough.
This next one, though, Houston at Texas Tech, 3:30 Eastern on FS2, because soon enough we'll have an FS8, the Ocho.
That'd be incredible.
Houston at Texas Tech. When Houston was still in the American and they started playing Texas Tech again, it became a pretty big game for Houston every year. And now it's a conference game, and Texas Tech continues to disappoint. Houston's been bad this year too, but Texas Tech has completely shit the bed every single turn that they've had. There were people outside of Lubbock for once saying, hey, Texas Tech might have a squad this year, and they've gone and proven everybody wrong. Problem is, Houston doesn't exactly have a squad either. So Houston's going to win it because reasons.
Unfortunately for this podcast, I was one of those people who jumped on the Texas Tech bandwagon for a short time there this summer. I fully regret that decision and am picking Houston in this game. Also of note, Tyler Shock is out for the season. He got hurt in the first quarter last week. Texas Tech just doesn't have a quarterback now. And Tyree Wilson, top 10 pick in last year's draft, has a 0.00% quarterback pressure rate, even though he's started every game so far for the Las Vegas Raiders. That is perfectly indicative of how the Red Raiders play football this season.
So, of course, Tug is going with the Red Raiders.
Yes, and he's probably going to be right because it's a rivalry game and wild stuff happens, and that's why we love college football. But objectively, Houston should win this game. Next up, the Purdue Cannon, Illinois at Purdue. On your favorite network, though.
Yeah, 3:30 Eastern on the cock. That's Peacock for all the uninitiated. I can't believe you or Tug would take Purdue at this point. The spoiler makers, as you like to say, have let both of you down on separate occasions on this very podcast.
I am fully aware. You know who else has let me down on this podcast?
Fighting
Illinois.
Illini, yeah.
And I don't trust
And
either of them.
they let you down at the shoe when you were like 7.
I was older than 7. It was 2007, and it sucked, and I cried. Literally. And then, all right, so that was Juice Williams, of course, for all those who don't remember. Juice Williams was the quarterback for Illinois. Just the first time Ohio State had ever seen a running quarterback, apparently, in Ohio State's history. First time that ever played against a quarterback who could scramble is the only explanation for that game. Then Juice Williams had that phenomenal season. He then became a youth pastor, and he spoke at my church after I had moved to Kentucky. I was torn between getting in a fist fight with him or getting his autograph, and so I just didn't talk to him. That's what ended up happening.
That's awesome. I never knew the second part of that story until just now. That was genuine.
So this game, Illinois-Purdue, the Purdue Cannon, I literally flipped a coin. I don't trust either of these teams. So that's actually what happened. I flipped a coin. I ended up with the home team. I'm cool with that. It's probably going to be Illinois because fuck me
fuck
with
you,
both
that's
these
why.
teams this year. That's how that's gone. Next up, Georgia at Auburn, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, and Auburn fans, with all the copium in the world, have long called this their actual biggest rival and not Alabama in the Iron Bowl, because they can't win against Alabama as consistently as they do against Georgia in like the past 30 years. But also the past couple of years, Georgia has been national champions, and Auburn is not. So we're all picking Georgia. Number 1, Georgia against unranked Auburn, who's still very much neck deep in a rebuild, doing pretty well on the recruiting trail, not so much on the field as of yet.
Yeah, they just got their shit packed in by Texas A&M last week.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
And they almost got tackled by Jimbo himself. Oh no, just a beautiful play.
By Jimbo Fisher. Last but not least on our rivalry matchups, I don't think we have another slide, do we? We've got Tennessee.
We do.
Oh, we do. Jesus.
Yeah.
So
we have plenty of rivalries this week.
Let's go down to the FCS level. Tennessee State at number 22, UT Martin, the Sergeant York Trophy. They might not have a accredited university program in a lot of different areas, but they've got a decent football team.
They have a ranked football team, and that's what matters. This is actually a 3-way rivalry. We will see this again, the Sergeant York Trophy, when one of these teams plays Tennessee Tech. But this is the first leg of it. Tennessee State at UT Martin, and we're all picking the Skyhawks. Tennessee State seems to not have it all together just yet. Their only loss so far in the season is to Notre Dame, which you can't blame them for. But still, it's not like they've played the greatest of competition just yet. It feels like the first real test for them. And we're all picking UT Martin. I love Eddie George, if you couldn't guess from, I don't know, all of the evidence over the past few years of listening to the podcast. But
Mike Jones,
I do have to pick against him.
He was short. He did not win that Super Bowl for your beloved Titans.
That's fine. It is what it is. All right. Now for the actual final slide of rivalry matchups. 4 more to go here. Starting us off with the State Fair Classic. This one is in Dallas, Texas. I did look this one up.
That might be why Texas Tech and Houston aren't playing down there.
Possibly. Grambling State against Prairie View A&M at the State Fair in Texas. I don't believe either of these teams have been all that great the past couple of years.
Are they going to be playing at the Cotton Bowl?
I didn't look that deeply, man.
If they're playing at the State Fair, I feel like it's at the Cotton Bowl because next week we probably get Texas, Oklahoma at the State Fair, right?
Dude, you're asking questions that I didn't research, and it's making me look bad.
The Dugopedia is loading. There's some buffering. Those technical difficulties we were talking about.
I am struggling.
I will say though, Tug and I are taking Grambling State, and that could just be on the the arm of what they've been able to do. I know the band plays a little bit of a factor into it for me. The the human jukebox out there. But Prairie View A&M, this is not a shot at them. But who the fuck are they? Nobody really knows, and I think that's why we're going with Grambling State here.
Yes, it is at the Cotton Bowl, first of all. Second of all, they beat their other rival, Texas Southern, already this season, which makes me feel good about them. And Hugh Jackson sucks. So I'm picking against Grambling State just as much as I am picking for Prairie View A&M right now.
You just hate Hugh Jackson that much?
Yeah, pretty much. That's where I'm at. And no, Bedlam is not next week. It is November 4.
I'm so confused. Anyway,
that's all I know.
Not Bedlam, the Red River rivalry, right? That's the one for Texas and OU.
Bedlam, yep. Okay.
Bad brain moment.
Red River is October 7th. So yeah, next weekend.
Yeah, next week. Nice. Okay. Nice. My brain's working and yours isn't. This is a first.
Dude, I'm not awake at the moment. It's moving on.
Oh, I got one thing to say about this game and one thing only: go Cox. I have no hope, but go Cox.
That is splendid. Thank you for that contribution. South Carolina at number 21, Tennessee. Tennessee busting out the black and orange uniforms, who even Bug admitted in the Discord that they look fine as hell, and they absolutely do. I very much approve when Tennessee busts out the black in the uniforms or the alternate Smoky Mountain uniforms. Those also look very, very nice. But this is a rivalry game, and it doesn't have a dumbass name like fourth weekend in September or something stupid. So at least we can give Tennessee props for not naming this one. It's
I would love to take Tennessee. I just won't. I refuse.
I'm surprised you even said you'd love to take them. That was wild. Tuck and I have taken Tennessee, though. That's where we're at. Next up.
Yeah, let's just move on.
Yep.
I can't gather my thoughts enough.
The battle for the Golden Horseshoe. Number 21, UC Davis at Cal Poly. We're all taking UC Davis here. Cal Poly hasn't been good for a while, and they need to change their freaking logo because it's just a CP, and it annoys the crap out of me. Get a different logo, please, for the love of everything in the world. Just hanging out there with a big CP on your helmet's not a good look. You're the Mustangs. Use a damn horse, please.
I agree.
It'd be so much better for everyone.
And look who's here. He's here. He made it. Just in time to talk about Alabama at Mississippi State, one of the most one-sided rivalries in the history of college football. The battle for Highway 82. And shockingly, we're all going with Alabama.
This one's not even close. I don't care. This one's not close.
That is accurate.
It is shocking to me that I can't really even think of too many years where Alabama, Mississippi State has been it's going to be one or the other.
Dak Prescott years.
Whereas
even that was
even
heavy
then,
Alabama, but
even then it's been heavy Alabama. Yet the most one-sided rivalry of all time, Bedlam, is talked about ad nauseum as it's going to be a good matchup. It could be anybody's game, and it rarely ever is.
Yeah, so if you're not in the Discord, you're missing out on this. But I did a little research earlier in the week. The Dogopedia was working earlier in the week. It does work. We have evidence. But I was looking for the most one-sided rivalries of all time. And it is not that uncommon of knowledge at this point that Bedlam is the most lopsided rivalry of all time. Oklahoma leads that one 91-19-7 all time. But Alabama Mississippi State is second on that list, with Alabama leading the series 85-18-3 all time. That is not a good look for Mississippi State.
Even when Alabama was having down years, it was a guaranteed win practically against Mississippi State. It's just it's insane.
I do want to say the last time that anyone actually gave Mississippi State a chance to win it, even before the game started, would probably have been 2014. That was the Dak Prescott season, when Mississippi State was the number one team in the inaugural college football playoff rankings. Number one in the country, Mississippi State
memories.
Bulldogs.
Good for them. Good for them.
And then they lost to Alabama. So
As one does.
Immediately. They had
Oh,
one
man.
taste of greatness.
But yeah, we're all picking Alabama. That's that. So, of course, we all have our own games of the weekend. Started off with Bug.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with an SEC matchup. Number 22 Florida at unranked Kentucky. This one's kicking off at noon Eastern on ESPN. The Gators have surprised me since that game against Utah. They really have. They've come back in a lot of ways that I don't think anybody really expected them to. I think everybody saw that Utah game and said, oh, this is Florida. This is who they are this year. And that doesn't seem like it's been the case. Meanwhile, Kentucky hasn't really had a big test this year, and this is going to be their first one. I understand giving Kentucky the benefit of the doubt, because I would doubt Florida still too. But after seeing what they did against Tennessee, I'm fully back in on Florida.
So my thing here is more against Kentucky than it is in favor of Florida. I still have questions with Devin Leary. He has not looked what we expected him to look like, and that's going to be a huge knock. If he comes out and plays an A game, I will not be surprised if Kentucky takes this. I just am not predicting that at this time, so I'm going to go ahead and take Florida on this one.
I agree with all that. I'm taking Kentucky because that's where I'm at.
The homer pick, I like it. I approve.
Football school, baby. Let's go.
There it is.
My next game is going to be 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus, VMI at Mercer. Now, I did not actually take this one to pick on Tug and show his, let his love for Senior Military Academy shine through.
I'm just confused where this started.
I was just looking through the games on the FCS side, and I saw this one. And Mercer has horribly underperformed all year, I feel like. So, of course, we're all going with the Bears. The problem is, the reason this game was intriguing to me is that VMI has outperformed everything this year. I'm kind of surprised nobody's willing to take the Keydets. However, here we are. This one, I think, is prime for a memeing.
Look, this is a get-right game for Mercer. It has all the makings of it. I mean, I understand that their season's not going the way they thought it was, but this is where they could get somewhat back on track. I think they take advantage of it. I think they do that, especially at home.
Yeah, there's zero chance in hell that I ever trust the Keydets with anything. So
except to beat Davidson. That's the only thing we learned.
Well, I didn't trust them then either, and that was my fault. So I'm still on that. I don't trust them for anything, apparently. I'm not picking them again in the future against Davidson either. Fuck that.
I probably would.
I don't trust VMI at all.
I'll take the free point.
Next up, in a first ever matchup between the two teams, two teams that have been vying to get into a Power 5 conference for quite some time, have been the talk of the Group of 5 level for several years, with each taking the lead at different times throughout that span. Boise State at Memphis going on at that same 4 p.m. Eastern time slot. You can catch this one on ESPN2. Memphis is at home. This game will be replayed again, I believe, in 2025 on the Smurf turf in Boise, Idaho. Because Memphis is going to be at home, I'm going to take the Tigers. This one is not a biased fan pick here. I really liked what I saw from Memphis in that game against Mizzou. Now, they had some penalties, like I talked about last week, that they've got to clean up. And Seth Hennigan still has some stuff to learn at quarterback. But Blake Watson has been insane running the ball this year, and I do have a lot of faith in Seth Hennigan despite his missteps last week. If they can get the penalties on second and third down cleaned up, this Memphis team is going to be tough to beat, and especially tough to beat for Boise in their first trip to the Liberty Bowl.
So when I look at these teams, I look at two teams that all year have been very hot and cold, but on opposite weeks. When Memphis plays well, Boise State really doesn't look that good. When Boise State plays well, Memphis really doesn't look that good. Boise State looked good Boise State looked like trash last week. Memphis looked really good last week. I'm going to take the flip-flop here. I'm going to take Boise. I really do think this is a toss-up of a game. I probably expect this to be probably about a 3-point game. I'm going to go ahead and take the Broncos here, change it up a little bit, prevent the skunk.
The line is 3 points, but it is in favor of Memphis. Forget this being the first ever matchup between Boise State and Memphis. This is the first ever game for Boise State in the state of Tennessee in its entirety. That is very cool. Love that. Probably be the last time they travel down south because they're going to get their ass handed to them. They're going to retreat back north like the scared little Broncos they are.
I love it. And it's going to be very interesting to see in 2 years what the conference landscape looks like if both these teams are still in these Group of 5 conferences, or potentially
going to be in the Pac-12.
Yeah, potentially could be a conference matchup in 2 years. So who knows what's going to happen here. I've been excited about this one since this series was announced probably 3 years ago. Now that I think about it, this game has all the makings of an instant classic for both teams. I got to click back on there.
All right, my games of the weekend, starting us off with South Alabama at James Madison. I understand if somebody wanted to go with South Alabama because JMU's been flying by the seat of their pants this entire season. They should have lost to Virginia. They pulled that out somehow, magically. They should have lost all of their games, actually, if you look at how it started in the fourth quarter, and they just find a way to sneak out a victory. They are currently 12-3 as members of the FBS. Wild, because all those one-score games have all gone their way. I still believe in the South Alabama defense to a considerable extent. I know it hasn't done me too many favors so far. South Alabama is 2-2 so far this season. But, man, I have a lot of faith in that Jaguars team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And if you can find a way to stop JMU for all 4 quarters instead of just 3 of them, you're going to win because they've let themselves be stopped for 3 quarters in basically every game so far this season. So I expect the Duke's luck to run out at some point. For some reason, we are all picking JMU still.
This could be completely incorrect thinking, but I've seen South Alabama play enough to know that they are not a fantastic team. They don't have a rich football history there. The best thing about them, I said it in our private little chat there, their fans chant USA only because it's University of South Alabama. And that's beautiful. They've got a beautiful new stadium. I think they are on the road to building something. I just don't know if they're going to be able to get it done against JMU on the road.
Doug, you already said the points I hit is JMU finds a way to win. I like those teams. They make the stops when they have to. Yeah, they're slow to start the game. Sometimes it takes them 3 quarters, but when you got a team that plays the fourth, keeps the game close enough through 3 quarters, and then comes out and lights it on fire in the fourth quarter, that's something special in and of itself. I cannot go against the Dukes here.
A name to look forward to in the offensive prospect preview series is very much a potential LaDamian Webb showing, running back for South Alabama. Love that guy. I'm picking JMU for some reason, so that's where we're at. I think it's going to be a great game. Next up, Youngstown State at Northern Iowa. Youngstown State
Going to
is
the beer
ranked
can.
number 22, but they are at one of the most difficult places to play in all of the FCS, which we've said a couple times this season, but Northern Iowa still is kind of pedestrian so far this year. Theo Day has not seemed to be able to really turn it on. Probably doing very well in the Detmer ratings. Shout out to the Sickos Committee. If you know what that is, then you're a legend. If you don't know what it is, I'm not explaining it. That's where we're at. I'm going with the Penguins here because I believe in that offense to such an extent. I perceive these defenses as pretty darn similar. I would give the edge to Youngstown State on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm picking the Penguins.
Yeah, I'm going to give UNI the edge at home. That's really what it comes down to. I would much rather take Youngstown State. It feels like that's a safer pick to take. But this is a Missouri Valley Conference game. UNI is at home. This is the type of game that they show up for. I'm going to take UNI here.
Look, I get that. I just think Youngstown State's a more complete team across the board. You give me that, especially in a conference matchup, I'm going to take the more complete team.
Well, speaking of conference matchups, I have 2 Sun Belt conference matchups on this slide. And the second of those is Coastal Carolina at Georgia Southern. Oh, man. I'm wearing a Coastal Carolina hat. And as much as I love the Chanticleers, or used to love them with Jamie Chadwell at the helm, what Tim Beck has done to this team is an abomination, and he should be burned at the stake. This is gross. Coastal Carolina is not the same, but they are still pretty dang talented. It's just the style of play is completely different, and I don't trust in the Chanticleers right now. They are defending East Division champions by default because JMU was ineligible last year. But
God damn it.
Georgia Southern with Clay Helton looked very good last year and is looking pretty good again so far this season. I'm going with the Eagles mostly because of how much it pains me to see what Coastal Carolina looks like right now.
Look, the X factor in this game for me is going to be Grayson McCall. Does he finally get back to looking what he had been looking like? Did I get his name right, or did I miss?
You did.
McCall.
I just
Okay.
have no. I don't see any possible way he gets back to what he looked like before because they used to run a very interesting and exciting version of the triple option, and they don't do that anymore, and they're trying to force him into a pro style offense, and he doesn't look good in that because he's not a pro quarterback.
No, and that's fine, but what I'm saying is I'm looking for him to at least take a step in that direction here. I know Georgia Southern's been doing really well this year. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I really don't have a good reason, but I'm gonna take the Chanticleers here.
I have this problem in fantasy football too, where I
You
tend
take
to
all the
not want to
cocks?
get. I tend to not want to get with the times. And I am stuck in the past thinking Georgia Southern's not that great, and Coastal Carolina is this amazing team. I'm going to ride with it. Though. I'm going to stick here with Coastal Carolina. I know they've been struggling. I did consider taking Georgia Southern.
I did too.
This was a tough pick for me, but I decided to go with the Chanticleers here.
And I think it's going to be a great game. So I understand why it was a tough pick, but I have to go with the Eagles.
Everything you said makes perfect sense to me.
And yet we disagree. Love it.
All right, guys. I'm starting us off this week with a little conference action of my own. Some might call it a little conference maction. going on out here between Buffalo traveling down to Akron. Like, both of these teams do not look great this year. It's been a rough year. I think they have a combined 1 win between the two teams. That's going to make this game more fun. I think
And it was a 3-point win against Morgan State.
Love it. Love it. Look.
No, actually, they have 2 wins because no.
One's 0-4, one is 1-3. I could have sworn.
No, you're right, because they lost to Indiana. Akron took them to 4 overtimes last week and couldn't seal a deal. You're right.
Yeah, correct. Cool.
Right.
So like, when I'm looking at this, it's kind of disgusting, but I love it. It's going to be nasty, good old Maction on a Saturday. We're not getting Tuesday Maction here. We're getting Saturday at noon Maction. I'm taking Buffalo. I think this game could go either way, so I'll take the road team for fun.
Yeah, this game is where it belongs on ESPN Plus. You have to really try to watch this game, which I will do because it is going to be great.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm going with the Zips because they're at home.
Hey, send it.
I'm going with the Zips because they're a kangaroo team, and also because this is a legitimate reason why I picked Akron. Have you guys ever played Retro Bowl?
Yes.
Retro Bowl College just dropped. It's been out for like a couple weeks, and I have been playing the shit out of Retro Bowl College. And my first team, I picked the Akron Zips as head coach AJ Hawk. We have 3-peated national championships out of the MAC.
Love it.
Retro Bowl College is downloading right now.
Hell yeah, it is incredible. I also took SIU to a national championship.
Go Dogs.
Can play as either FBS or FCS schools. They're all in there. It is wonderful.
Love it.
Not sponsored. Right, I just love it so much.
All right, my next 2 picks really are homer picks for me. You got my home state going head-to-head against another smaller school in my home state. I'm taking Rhode Island in this one. Bryant can put up a fight.
In the 15 square feet that is Rhode Island, how can they fit a football field, let alone 2 colleges?
Hold on. There's a third college that also has a football field.
I know there is. It makes no sense.
They're stacked on top of each other. This is 3 dimensions.
Okay, hold up. You just came up with a new business idea I'm all in on. Multi-level football.
I thought you were going to say vertical cities. I was like, this is not an original idea.
No. I'm thinking like vertical stadiums. Like, I could have 3 different football games going on at once.
This is
I would hate to be the architect designing that.
Yeah, that's not my job.
The 3D chess of football would take some next level coaching. I think the only people who could handle that are Bill Belichick and Nick Saban.
But no, so Rhode Island does look like a good team, but Bryant has been giving some teams fits for no reason this year. This could be a really good game. And again, these 2 teams are very, very familiar with each other. They're a whole 45 minutes away from each other. I'm surprised this is not a rivalry, to be honest.
It's a 45-minute elevator ride to the next level of the building.
You asked for that one.
I did. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with all this. But looking down our list here, Doug and I are taking the Rams. Ben's taking the Bulldogs. Ben, I'm assuming you're just being a contrarian here. What do you have?
No, Rhode Island, I feel like, has kind of been exposed. I think everybody has the playbook on how to beat them, and I'm not giving too much of a home field advantage to Rhode Island either.
No,
I think they're starting to come back down to earth, and I do think Bryant has a little more to show than what they've done so far this year.
Yeah, I would definitely say there is no home field advantage here. The crowd will be about 50-50. The other 50% of the stadium will be empty.
50 people and 50 people for both teams.
I was going to say, like, maybe that's where Notre Dame's 11th man is.
Oh. All right, my next one is a homer pick. This game always scares me every year. I'm not a huge fan of playing San Diego State. This is also a good litmus test for Air Force going into conference play. It's going to give a true gauge of where they're at, even though San Diego State does not look the greatest this year, I'll be honest. But it is always a challenge for Air Force to play San Diego State. Both teams are very familiar with each other. And San Diego State historically does a good job of slowing down Air Force's rushing attack. I'm still taking the Falcons in this one. I see you guys are too. What you got?
I just want to say we're all picking Air Force.
Yes.
And if we get skunked on this one, I'm not going to put a skunk on the slide. I'm going to put a blue falcon on the slide.
Approved. Absolutely approved.
You mean their mascot?
No, our mascot's a white falcon.
Blue falcon.
Their
are you talking
mascot
about
is
the
a
bird?
regular falcon.
Are you talking about the bird? Yeah, the bird is
mascot
blue.
Is a blue
bird is-
falcon.
Yeah, yes, you are correct. The bird is blue.
A blue
yeah.
falcon.
That is the species of falcon that they chose as a mascot.
That is
it
what
is
the
so
Academy
retarded.
trains the best of.
Oh man, that is. We're all picking Air Force for the reason that you said. San Diego State just hasn't looked that good this year.
Yeah,
That's where I'm at.
well,
And here's another great stat involving Air Force, but also Army and Navy. All three of the FBS service academies have had 100-yard plus passing games more recently than Auburn has.
oh my God.
That might happen again here. And I would not bet on 100 plus passing yards for Auburn this week. So
Not me looking for Mason real quick in my phone book to text him that.
All right. So
Take a little trip
games.
to Detroit Rock City, everybody.
Yeah. Speaking of Detroit, they're whooping the Packers right now.
There's one thing in the world that could make me harder than I am right now.
The Bears
And
actually showing up to play a football game?
Nope,
His
it's
wife?
hockey related.
Oh, okay.
My wife's up there too.
She just doesn't quite crack the top 3, but she's up there.
I'm not changing this into a hockey podcast. I'll tell you guys later.
Okay. We are turning this into a Jackrabbits podcast for a moment
I
here.
like this.
Isaiah Davis is my offensive prospect to watch this week. Very potentially a day 3 pick at running back. Kind of how these things go. If you do pretty well at the FCS level, you get consideration in like the 7th round. And that's where Isaiah Davis might end up here. Is a very real shot at making it too, because not only is he good at running the ball, consistently averaging more than 7 yards a carry over the past couple of seasons, but also he's pretty good at receiving the ball out of the backfield. You may notice if you're looking at the slide here, his stats don't really look that good this season so far. That's because they haven't needed to play him in like anything but the first quarter of their games so far this season. I would say that changes against North Dakota this week, and Isaiah Davis should see a pretty big workload against the Hawks. And I believe he can handle it because every time they've handed him the ball more than 20 times in a game, they have won, and he has done very well. So I'm willing to bet that Isaiah Davis gets a nice chunk of the workload and probably puts up 2 or 3 touchdowns this week is what I'm hoping to see. And as a 6'1", 220-pound running back, that is some exciting old school football. And I want to watch it. That's where I'm at.
I love it. I love it.
It's also it's not entirely fair for me to say every time they give them the ball 20-plus times that they win, because they've won almost every game for the past couple of years. So, anyway.
But it's not wrong.
Defensive side of the ball. A defensive prospect to watch this week is McKinley Jackson with 2 N's in McKinley. What a name. Also, what a massive individual.
Yeah, to wear the number 3, like that is such a small number for such a big dude.
Awesome.
He just changed it this season. He was number 35. Not any better.
That is worse. Never mind. I'm glad
no,
he's
that's
number 3
better.
now.
35 is way better. What are we talking about here?
35 is an ugly number.
But he is 6'2", 325 pounds, looks every bit of it. And this picture I loved because the only strategy to block this man, according to the New Mexico State Lobos in this picture, is to throw your body at him and hope to redirect his momentum. And that worked on this play.
A lot of momentum to turn direction if you do successfully do that.
Yeah. So he's a defensive tackle. The stats are not ever going to look that great if you're a defensive tackle, unless your name's Aaron Donald and you can just happen to win every blocking assignment ever. That's not any other defensive tackle in the history of playing defensive tackle. So stats aren't going to look that great necessarily, but what he lacks in recordable stats, he makes up for in stuffing up the entirety of the defensive line. And also, you have to consider, this is one of the most talented defensive lines we have ever seen in college football. And I know that sounds ridiculous because it is Texas A&M. Look at their recruiting classes the past couple of years and how much money they've poured into that defensive line. We all know it. We can't avoid it. It's true. The fact that he is the definitive defensive tackle in this rotation and just eats the middle of the field on every play should tell you something about how good he is as a defensive tackle. Probably right now, you're looking at an early day 3 kind of a guy, though. Most likely, that stems from him not being that much of a pass rusher. I'm okay with that when you have a guy who can just stand there and eat like 3 blocks at once. So I want to see how he's able to do that. And if he can actually get some production against an Arkansas offensive line who really hasn't performed that well this season. KJ Jefferson has had to.
It's been the
at times.
It's been the injuries too. So I do wonder if maybe we see him get some more stats this week too.
Yep. And if Texas A&M records multiple sacks in this game,
that'd be impressive.
Would be impressive because they all started with 1. But they might collect a few. That's scary.
Oh God!
Grab twist of gold, baby.
Oh no!
But what I was originally going to say is if they record multiple sacks in this game, I would not at all be surprised if I end up coming back and saying I attribute at least half of those to the work McKinley Jackson's doing up front, even if he wasn't the one actually grabbing the quarterback. So I want to watch this game for that specifically.
He might not have grabbed the quarterback, but he did twist and pull the quarterback.
I love it. Big dude in the trenches. Watch some trench work this week on SEC Network. So that's why I pay the big bucks for TV, so I get all the networks. But that is all the time that we have for the show. Unless, of course, we have some add-ins from the Peanut Gallery over here, Bug and Tug. What do you got?
Look, guys, I will apologize for being late, but we went to a, and I quote, upscale casual restaurant, and the food was delicious. I have no regrets.
Wendy's?
No, Central. It's, I don't know. It's just called Central.
Central Barbecue is all the way up in Memphis. That's a long drive.
Nope, this is not Central Barbecue.
That's depressing.
I would have been impressed if I made it back in time, though. Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Dude, while you're in Alabama, I know it's going to be a little bit of a drive. I highly recommend going to Auburn because Auburn, Alabama has like 3 things in the entire city, and one of them is the university. The other thing that they have, at least when I was there, is a great frozen yogurt place. Phenomenal.
So the tough part for me is I don't have a car.
You drive all the way to Auburn.
Figure it out. Figure it out. That's what I'll say.
It's only about drive. Auburn's actually closer than Alabama, or
I'm sure it is. Tuscaloosa's in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Right.
Tuscaloosa's about 2 hours. I think Auburn's about an hour and a half.
Yeah. But that's what we did for fun.
I will make an attempt.
Is that one froyo place that's probably closed because froyo hasn't been popular for a decade, but it was a great time.
All right.
For the record,
there was another place. There was a burger place in town that my picture is on the wall because I did the burger challenge and killed that shit.
So, side note, Doug, have you ever been to a Cookouts? It's a fast food joint.
Cookout.
No,
It's a pretty southern thing. I doubt he has.
I didn't know
Specifically
how
the
far up they
southeast.
went. Yeah. Oh, dude, they have good food. That is
Okay.
stupid cheap good food.
I mean, I've been to the deep south several times. I've just never
That's
been.
We're
why I
getting
was asking
way
you.
off topic here.
Look,
Doug,
he
you got
says
some. You got some links to read.
I knew
and
that.
we were really hoping that was the only time you would show. We were hoping you'd be showing up right about now just to read the links. You beat it by like 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our links scrolling down below. They will be, as always, linked in the description below as two. We have patreon.com/btfootball, facebook.com/btfootball, x.com/btfootball, instagram.com/bt_football, twitch.tv/bigdudesinthetrenches, youtube.com/@bigdudesinthetrenches, bdtfootball.com, mailbox@bdtfootball.com, and the Discord is always linked below.
So 3 things. If you're watching live and you're seeing our sports score bot having a stroke, the Packers did not score a touchdown and then get a safety. They got the 2-point conversion. We're gonna go to that game when we get done here. That's where we're gonna rate out to the Prime Video because they're streaming the game on Twitch now, so that's awesome.
Nice.
And last, why did the cell phone need glasses?
Why?
It lost all its contacts.
That's wonderful.
Right.
Actual last thing though, I do want to shout out that Tug was going to pick Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State, but it was
I'm glad I didn't
tonight. It's a touchdown game in the third quarter here. And
did Jacksonville State come back?
Yeah, it's 21-14 right now. And
Go Cox.
It might have been a great game. I'm sorry, but we can't be picking too many Thursday games. It's already strange.
No, it's fair. It's fair. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have on the show today. Thank you for watching and/or listening. And just remember, you can't win a game if you can't win the train.